Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Jorson, Northeast Metro Climate Action. We are a volunteer-run community organization with members in Vadnais Heights, yeah, and White Bear Lake, North Oaks, and Shoreview. Our mission is to raise awareness about the climate crisis and also on clean energy and sustainability solutions. Through events like this, we've been having events all the way we've been in business for about 5 years. Went through COVID, did mostly online stuff. We're back in person now, which is great. So we've been having events like this once a month for and then this is our last event for this session. We'll take the summer months off and then start back up in September. In addition to events like this, we also work with our elected leaders to promote climate action policies at the state and local levels, and get involved with local community activities as well. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe tribes, and we honor their heritage and legacy on these lands. Tonight's event is Clean Air Lawn Care, and we're very happy to have Jukka Kukkonen here. He's the founder of Shift to Electric, which is a Minnesota-based electric vehicle market and technology consulting firm. He teaches EV markets and technology at the University of St. Thomas, my colleague there at the University of St. Thomas. We are also co-hosted tonight by Resilient Roseville, Sustainable Stillwater, Indivisible North Metro Team, Vote Climate, Vadnais Heights Green Team, and West Metro Climate Action. So yeah, we've been having co-hosts and a whole coalition of groups to come together to promote these events. So this has been really great. And looks like we have about 6 people online, and as we saw, we have about 25 people here in the room. All right, with that, Jukka, if you want to come back, and we'll put you on gallery view. And
good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here today to talk with you about electric vehicles and mostly about clean air lawn care. I do so many EV presentations that I always start with EVs. So sorry about that, but we might talk a little bit about those too. We'll see. Usually when I open my mouth, people immediately pick up my Wisconsin accent. And then I just have to correct people a little bit, say like, yeah, it's right direction, just go a bit more east. So I'm originally from Finland, Europe, not northern Minnesota, but Finland, Europe. And I'm an automotive engineer. I used to work for Ford Motor Company in Finland. I was responsible for technical training and area manager there and all kinds of good things. And then I just was thinking about what I want to do. And I was thinking like, if I want to make a difference in this world, I don't want to be making a difference of increasing sales of internal combustion engines. So I moved away from automotive industry, went into consulting and training, met my wife through that way, and she, of course, is from here. So then when we decided to get married, we have to flip a coin if she's going to move to Finland or if I'm going to move to here. And I don't know if I won or lost, but I've been here over 20 years now. So that's my story of how I ended up here, if you're wondering about that. So I followed, of course, what's happening in the automotive industry, and I saw that electric vehicle technology is maturing in a way that it will become a viable option for us. And I decided it's time for me to get back to automotive industry side of things. So I started working with electric cars in 2010. So I've been now working with this kind of electrification of transportation and other things for 14 years. So that's that. We have all kinds of good things like Minnesota EV Owners Group and all kinds of things. I know many of you are members of our group, know about that. We've been working with clean air lawn care things for at least 5 years now. It's kind of we did, especially during the COVID time, we did quite a bit of presentations about this one. And I worked a lot with Fresh Energy. Anjali here is from Fresh Energy, and they'll talk a little bit about Fresh Energy stuff a little later too. But Fresh Energy is a clean energy advocacy organization in St. Paul. and also American Lung Association, and did a lot of lawn care presentations at that point. And we haven't done them too much in recent years, but now it seems to be time to get back to this one and talk about this, because of course it's great. So let's get into clean air lawn care. Talk about this. All right. So today we'll talk about why the electric technology is just better. Why these things advancing in this space? What are the clean air and health benefits? What are the other benefits we can get from this? We can talk about the equipment and the market, equipment on the market right now. What are the considerations that you should make when you're choosing the equipment for yourself? We'll talk about the battery capacities and electricity costs, talk about care and maintenance, and of course you get the chance to ask any questions you have, and also share your experiences. So that's that. Since I'm an engineer, I usually start with technology. And even though this is a little big engine for lawn mowers, it's still a good thing to talk about. So why are we even talking about electrification of anything? Well, if you think about internal combustion engine that has been used for over 100 years, it's a pretty decent machine. But the challenge is with internal combustion engine is that we are trying to capture the energy that is in chemical form in gasoline and transform it into propulsion power or lawn mowing power by using small explosions. And small explosions might be a fun thing to do many things, but it definitely is never the most efficient way to do anything. And that's the challenge we have with the internal combustion engine. It is not efficient at all. We're talking about 15 to 25% efficiency. So someone has actually said that the internal combustion engine is excellent heater, and as a side product, we get some propulsion power out of it too, which is very good description of internal combustion engine itself. Then if you do a comparison into electric motors are 85 to 95% efficient. They're 4 times more efficient than internal combustion engine. So you're using just a quarter of energy that you would use with the internal combustion engine. And this is in auto side of things. Was that owner of one of the units, or was that someone just hauling away one of your units? Who's the lower or was the eagle there? I think they started mowing the lawn there.
Oh, he's got a pull start on.
Okay.
It's not electric.
Funny. Yeah, that's a traditional internal combustion engine at work.
Yeah,
He's trying to get it started, and he's having really hard time about it. Very good example. Very good example. And I think he came up. So there we go. I think that was excellent. Anyways, if yeah, I'm probably not gonna tell you how much I paid for him to do that. So but that was fitting. If we talk about in car usage, that there's a 4 times more efficient thing. With small engines, it's even bigger the difference, because those small engines are extremely energy inefficient. So that's what it is. Good news for car side is that we are already peak internal combustion engine cars. The world has seen the most sold internal combustion engine cars. Now we are already moving into electric in this area. So that's good. And we are definitely hoping to see the same thing with the smaller engines too. And we are starting to see that there too. What has changed the thing is, of course, you could say that, hey, we have had electric motors for a century too. Why haven't we moved earlier? Well, the batteries were not ready for it. If you think about the batteries or for what we had for first when the mobile phones came out, you had to have this big pack of batteries with you when you moved. Nowadays, it's totally different thing. So we've seen a lot of advancement in battery technology. And I'll give you an example what this means. I have here one of the Ego batteries here. And this one, if this battery, Ego would have built this battery in 2010 for the lawnmower use, it would have probably cost over $300 for them. So it's a little hard to sell affordable lawnmowers if just the battery itself costs over $300 to make, not to add to margin and all of that there. Nowadays, they can probably make the same battery for $30. And that's why we are seeing the change. That's why we have longer range EVs. That's why we have more affordable lawn equipment and more readily available. So that's a big difference there in battery. Then, of course, also our grid is getting cleaner all the time. And good news is that we don't have to do anything when we have electric equipment. When the grid gets cleaner, our equipment gets cleaner all the time. So we just have to make sure that the utility companies are making the grid cleaner. So we have to remind them a little bit about that every now and then. But that's going well ahead. If you think about the small engines like lawnmowers and other, we look at the pollution from those equipment. This is from small engine fact sheets from California Air Resource Boards. They say that each weekend during the summertime, I assume, about 54 million Americans mow their lawns. And that means 800 million gallons of gas per year is used for that. And then if you look at the small off-road engine emissions, and you look at where it comes, because this includes everything that is less than 19 kilowatts of power, small engines off-road, which there's a lot of other equipment than these involved with it. But if you look at that, residential lawn and garden is 33% of those emissions, and then 20% is commercial lawn and garden. So it's over 50% is coming from those, which is staggering number when you think about it, and provides a really good opportunity to clean up the things by electrifying that. And then at the same time, you look at the lawnmowers, when you think about, okay, that's a small machine, it doesn't use that much gasoline, and it's fine in that way if you think about it. Well, truthfully, it produces a lot of emissions, because those small engines, especially the two-strokes, which most of our equipment don't have any emission control systems in them. They are very small and rudimentary in many ways. So the emissions that come out of there are horrific. They're just plain horrific. And if you think about overall the whole idea that we don't have any oil in Minnesota, we are importing all of that oil here. We are exporting boatload of money then to pay for that oil. All of that money moves away from Minnesota. And then we are burning all of that oil here and getting all the emissions here. How much sense does that make? Doesn't make any sense to anyone when you start to think about it. Nowhere, not in the cities, and definitely not in the rural areas. If someone says, well, I don't want to get rid of my gasoline things, I'm like, yeah, you are not using any Minnesota energy when you're doing it here. That's one thing that we have to understand and also remind people, because they might not understand it. So that's important there. So really good opportunities to make things much better by moving away from those small engines in every way we can. Air pollution and health. I'm sure you have read a lot of reports about what the kind of causes this has. And if you think about all of these small engines in our city areas or in any kind of where people live, they are spewing the emissions right where we live, right where we play, right where we move. That's the worst thing you can ever do. It's not good at all. The other examples I usually use is when you think about the school buses, and you have these diesel engines there, and you have the exhaust pipes right at the same level where the kids are breathing when they are waiting for the school bus and getting in the school bus. That's borderline criminal, if you think about it, what we are doing there. So we definitely have to work on that too. But all of this, electrifying everything, will help a lot in this area. We will have we have a electric mowers list available for you. If you go to electriclawninfo.org, we have quite a bit of different lists there. There's actually electric lawnmowers, there's battery and corded list there. There's chainsaws, leaf blowers, trimmers, there's snow blowers, there's commercial lawnmowers, all of that, just the basic information about them. So altogether, there was 23 pages, 237 units, over 2,800 data points. The only challenge with these is that right now they are from they are 4 years old. So don't trust all the information there, especially the pricing information. You can still look at them and do some comparisons and look at what's out there in the markets. You get some idea. American Lung Association is actually working on updating these. So before the summer gets any further, we should have new lists available there, at least in most categories. Go check it out. That's what we put together, and it's very interesting because like 2018, there was hardly anything. There were a couple of lawnmowers or something like that. There were not too many units available. Nowadays, you can walk into any local hardware store and you can always find electric equipment. So they are there. They are available, and there's plenty of different units available. I was at one event. I talked with one of the manufacturers' representatives there, and he's like, "Here's our brochure." Brochure was actually a booklet, 120 pages of electric lawn equipment of all kinds. I was like, all right, well, this is pretty good information. Ton more information, ton more units available. So no need to worry about that. Can you really find? Yes, you can. It's fine. So electric lawnmower benefits, if you talk about this. First of all, the less energy used. We already talked about that. I did the calculation and I came up with them. If you mow an average city lot here, it takes the same amount of electricity as boiling half a gallon of water. So in the morning when you do your tea water or anything, if it's half a gallon that you're boiling, it's the same amount that you would do the whole lot with electric lawnmower. So it's not that much, actually. Of course, there's no emissions, which is good for your user, so yourself, for the neighborhood, for the city, and of course the planet overall. They are much quieter, which is a huge advantage, of course, as we know, for the user, but especially for the neighbors. And if you can convince your neighbor to get an electric lawnmower, then it's good for you too. So it always works both ways. I had my neighbor said to me, they have electric lawnmowers now. They say like, always felt so bad even starting the lawnmower and sometimes, but nowadays I'm like, he was like, I can go in the middle of the night if I feel like it. That's whenever I want. That was freedom to him. That was freedom really for him. It's like, this is how I want to do it. There's less vibration, which is good when you're using it. There's no need to mess with the gas. You don't have to buy, you don't have to store it, and you don't have any off-gassing in your garage. It is really much nicer when you don't have to worry about the gas in your garage. It is nice thing there. They always start, unlike the one example we just saw outside there. So that's always good. They are way cheaper to use. I have a different calculation there a little later about it. Easy maintenance. They are really simple. I mean, we see some of the units there, like that blower there. If it's a plug-in one, it only has one electric motor there. That's that. There's nothing else. It doesn't have too much there. So maintenance needs some very low. They are much lighter weight, many of them. And then, of course, they're easy to store, especially the mowers, because many of them you can just lift up and put them on the side of the wall. You can't do that with most of the gas mowers because then the oil and gas would just go mixed up and all that. It takes much less space there. So I like that a lot. All right, corded or cordless. When should you consider corded? Because I think we see both examples outside here. For example, we see some corded and some cordless machines here. So corded are usually cheaper because you just have the motor there. You don't have a battery. So you have to use your own cord for it, of course, in that way. So they are more affordable. If you want a very light mower, they are very light. When you don't have to have a battery, and they are usually lighter construction otherwise too. So when you have to move them, that's easy. You should have accessible outside outlets. That's of course needed. And then you of course have to deal with the cord. I did that for several years. It worked just fine, but I have to say it was a little easier when you don't have to deal with the cord, especially for mowing. For some of the other equipment, I have corded units like head trimmer. I don't mind the cord because I use it once a year and I have one bush that I work with. That's all. So why would you need a battery powered for that? I can pull the cord for that. It's not an issue. So you can think about how are you using different equipment, where you could use corded and where you could get cordless. Then choose a battery mower if you don't want to deal with the cord, of course. And if you're looking for self-propelled mower, then it has to be the battery one. And then the good news with this is that you don't necessarily have to have many different batteries. You can get the same batteries and use them with different equipment all the time. Then how to choose a lawnmower? Just a rough idea about that. First of all, I would say calculate the size of lawn you have, just to get a rough idea about that. I did a little calculation, or here's one example calculation here. You could say that if you have a standard city lot in Twin Cities, it's usually 40 by 120. And then you just take the house off, garage off, driveway, sidewalks, whatever you have, and you're probably around 3,000 square feet, roughly. I actually went and measured my lawn to see how it was. I just took the measuring tape. It took me 15 minutes to do that, and I came out with 2,800 square feet for it. So it's not that complicated. Then think about how often do you mow and how much do you cut each time. You can that's also useful information. Then consider the battery capacity, and we'll talk about the battery capacities more here very soon. Think about how big of a mower you want. People usually tend to want big. I usually want to have small because I don't have that big of a lawn. And if I have a small one, it's much easier to move around. It's much easier to store. I'm happier with that. I definitely don't need a big mower. Right now, what I have is actually too big. I would actually get a small one right now if I could get, if it would make sense for me to change. All right. So let's talk about the battery capacity, because this is one thing that you have to really think about when you are looking at the mower. So oftentimes these batteries, they have two things that they show there. Like this one here, it says 40 volts. So that's the voltage. This usually in many times the voltage tends to tell how fast something spins. That's a rough idea. It's how higher voltage, faster the thing spin. That could be one thing. It's not directly like that with battery, but just to give you an idea. Then it has 4 amp hours here. So first of all, you have to make sure that the voltage is right for your mower, because you can't take a 24 volt battery and use it with the 40 volt or the other way around. Voltage has to be exactly the same. That has to match. But then this one, for example, says 4 amp hours. So if I have a 4 amp hour one here, this one is, tell me, I'm guessing that this is a 2 amp hour based on the size. We have here 7.5 amp hours. All right. And then this one is 5 amp hours. So why is this one so much bigger than this? This is 4 amp hours. This is 5 amp hours. Oh, what's newer? Well, it's partly that maybe, but mostly it's because they're different voltage too. That's the big difference here. So you can't compare different ones just to each other just by looking at the amp hour. That doesn't tell you the whole story. You have to do a little calculation here. This is the math portion of the presentation. So what you do is you take the 40 volts time 4 amp hours, you get 160 watt hours. That's your capacity of the battery. You take, in this case, you take 56 volts and 5 amp hours here. And now you're talking about 280. So this was 160, 280. That's how other things. Then you go to this one, and it's a 60 times 7.5, and that would be 450. So 450 amp hours, way bigger. Size-wise, they're not that much bigger, but this is almost double, at least 1.7. So that's how you do the calculation when you think about the equipment, is how much battery capacity is. You do the times, voltage times the amp hours, and then you get the comparable number between the different. If you, for example, look at the different makes and models, you can then see, okay, this one has a bigger battery than that one, which means that you have more longer time to use it. So what I'm using, usually the battery capacity range I have here is 100 to 400 watt hours. This was already 450, this one. So that's that. So it's much, they are getting a little bigger all the time. But what I say is, well, a couple of things. First of all, though you can always add capacity by buying a second battery and use that. But if you average city lawn is 3,000 square feet, it takes about 200 watt hours to mow it. That's kind of my rule of thumb number there. If you have smaller lot, then it's less. If you have 6,000 square feet, then you should have 400 amp hours, watt hours, I'm sorry, to mow it. But if you do a calculation then and say there's some inefficiencies for the 3,000 square feet lot, and you need 250 watt hours to charge the battery there to mow it, it means that, and then 1 kilowatt hour energy costs you 12 cents. We can easily do the math that it's only 3 cents to mow the lawn once. And that means that you can mow the whole lawn 33 times for $1. If you think about how, so that's how little energy we are using when we are using lawnmowers. And of course you can say, well, it's not that big of a deal in my small lot. I mean, the gas doesn't even cost much. Then you go into commercial setups and you look at the people who are doing this commercially and they run these equipment all the time. Most of them have not done this math. If they would do, and if they would start to use it, they would realize that, oh boy, this is so much cheaper for us to use the electric equipment there for all that. So this is a good discussion to be had with those people. Other considerations when you think about the equipment there, especially mowers, self-propelled or not. In my lawn, it doesn't make any difference, but other people might have a different lawns and it might make sense. Collecting or mulching or both. Some of these have automatic blade speed adjustments. So what it does there is that it, if it's just an easy short lawn for it, it's usually slower speed. But if it hits a patch where there's a lawn is a little bit thicker or longer, it might increase the speed there and use more powerful feature for that. You can of course do the cutting height adjustments. Some of them are single height adjustment, and some of them you have individually do it for each wheel. Just to be aware of that. The weight usually is lower than the internal combustion engine ones, so that's usually the weight. And then the warranty. Look at the warranty terms there. And then of course we have so many different equipment than just a lawnmower. We have the trimmers, hedge trimmers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, snow blowers, and other hand tools, and even it's there is that that's probably a plug-in one for the power washer. Yeah, because I've seen some of those also in the battery equipment. You have some of those in battery equipment. They have storage systems, all kinds of great things that you notice you can do with those. So look at that also and think about what kind of equipment are you using, and then figure out that you'll choose the system that, because usually you can exchange the batteries between different systems so that you can have the other equipment from that too. Then if you talk about the care and maintenance for lawnmowers, very, very easy. So my recommendation is every time you mow the lawn, after that, you tip the mower over, pull out the battery, because then you're safe after that, or unplug it if you'd scored it. Then there's nothing scary there. Then just clean up that area there from all the clippings. It's very easy to do at that point. And then also check the blade if it's too dull. And then you can either sharpen it yourself with the angle grinder or get it professionally sharpened. Much better to get it professionally sharpened, but you can use a file or angle grinder to kind of get a little bit of sharpening there sometimes if needed. If you are leaving the batteries over winter time and you're not using a snowblower, just leave them to like 3/4 charged, and then every couple of months just check out what's the charge there and see if they need to be charged. Usually they don't. Usually they last easily over the whole winter, but just to make sure, do that. Nowadays, when I have a snowblower too, I use the batteries in the winter time too for that. I keep my batteries in my basement, so it's a little cooler but not cold. So they are especially good because they're not then ready for the snowblower when I need that to get them out of there. So that's the way to do it. And some of them have meter in the battery. You can see there, like this one shows that now it's full because all the lights are on there. And some of them, like this one, this just shows that it's green. It's good. It's a little hard to say what's the state of charge with this one. But if I would plug it in with this charger and this would be plugged in the wall, then it would tell me what's the state of charge. Give me an idea about that. So that's how you get to this battery. Then there's also robot mowers available. These are actually better machines that you'd initially think. The idea with these is that they live outside. So you put them out in the springtime and you take them back in the fall time, roughly. But the idea is that they keep grass mowed all the time. They go to charge themselves automatically. When they are low in the state of charge, they just run back to their charging station and plug themselves in there, get charged, and then continue the work. And also, if it starts to pouring rain, they also like, all right, time for me to get out of here. And they get away and they go back to where the charger is. They're very convenient and they can work on hills. And the kind of interesting thing is that what they do is that they just have these kind of like some of them have like a razor blade looking blades. They just clip very little every time because they keep doing it all the time. So they're not going through like thick lawn. They just keep on clip, go around. And then actually that one mulches the ground very nicely too, because the clippings are very short. So actually not a bad system overall. They're a bit more expensive. Last time I looked, and this was a couple of years ago, it was probably over $1,000 a piece of these. I don't know if it has come down at all recently, or if they have jacked up the prices and made them even smarter. I don't know. Maybe they serve you drinks nowadays. Who knows? So I wouldn't be surprised about that either. But they are very good, and they actually are very good on hills. So if you have a hilly yard, these work really well for that. And the funny thing is that bigger yard you have, better these are. And if you think about it, if you have a big yard, you usually go and buy this big sitting or standing mower, and then it's much more expensive. It takes much more energy. Whereas you can just buy one of these and just let it do the job. And I truthfully don't understand when people say, well, I like to mow my own lawn. It takes me 3 hours every week. I'm like, great. That sounds so awesome. I would definitely, I can definitely come up with a couple of other ideas for that time that I could do there. So if I would have a big lawn, first of all, if you have to spend 3 hours to mow your lawn, you have a way too big lawn to start with. Doing something wrong there to start with. But if I have a big lawn, I would get one of these and let it do the job, and I would sit on there and read the paper and enjoy the cold beverage. Much rather. There are riding mowers, those who don't need it, especially for the commercial entities. There's more and more. 2020, 2022, I think last time I looked at this, we had over 20 of the different models available, but there's more and more coming all the time, these. And then, as I said, we have the electric lawn info where we have quite a bit of this information. But now it's time for Q&A and your experience and everything, all of good stuff like that. So do we have any online questions yet on there?
I do not.
Okay, not yet. Well, online, those people who are online, feel free to ask the questions there, type it in the chat there, or join us there. But yes.
And can you repeat any question that comes from?
Yes, I'll try to remember to do that. If I don't, remind me. All right. So any questions? Yes.
Well, battery life, that seems to be an issue. between the lesser expensive models, are the batteries still as powerful, or can they make two 40-watt or 40-volt 2-amp batteries that are not the same?
They can. Yeah, there's definitely differences with that. And unfortunately, I don't have any data that I could say this manufacturer makes the best batteries or that one doesn't. But the challenge with these is that they are pretty rudimentary when it comes to the battery management. I'm supposed to ask the question again. Anyways, the question was, are there differences in the batteries and the longevity? The controls here are pretty rudimentary in that way. So if you want to pamper these batteries and try to get as much longevity out of them as possible, I would try to not charge them or leave them charged fully. Like this one here, don't do this. If you want to keep it, if you're not going to use it right now, charge is only like 75% when leaving it somewhere. That's one thing that you can do. When you need it, you can definitely charge it fully right then, but just start using it right away. Don't leave it 100% charged, because batteries like to be in 20 to 80% charged, lithium-ion batteries. So that's that. So if you leave it for a longer time, leave it a little lower. That's a one thing to do for them, definitely. And then also the same thing, if you're using it, don't try to just like hold the lawn as long as you can. And if the battery already shows you red light, just wait for 2 seconds and start it again. Don't do that. Just don't try to like suck all the amp hours out of the battery as you can. Leave a little bit more there and just like, all right, let's go and get this charged now, or switch the other battery, because you might have a second battery like I do. Then use that one and let the other charge. So keeping them between 20 to 80% is usually the best charge.
So leaving a battery on the charger after it's not a good idea after it's charged.
I would recommend not leaving it 100% sure if it's 100% if you can. I mean, it doesn't matter if you do it every now and then, but if you really want to pamper the batteries, best way is to leave it a little less and then just charge it right before you do it, if you need the full state of charge. Before we go actually further in the questions, I would like to give Anjali and Metric a little opportunity here to say a couple of words about, because they know what has been happening at the Capitol with all of this. So they might have little updates for us. So please. Here's the microphone. So if you can.
Actually, the microphone is in the computer. So
Oh, sorry.
so speak to the computer.
Yeah.
Great, that is helpful. Wonderful. Thank you for everyone for having us here and for Jukka inviting us. My name is Anjali Baines. I work at Fresh Energy. So we're a clean energy advocacy nonprofit that sponsors talks like this from Jukka. Jukka is also our EV consultant, so he brings a lot of his technical knowledge and know-how to our work with the state legislature and from the Public Utilities Commission. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Metric Giles. I'm a co-director of a nonprofit community stabilization project. We work on housing stabilization and food justice, as well as energy justice as well. And so it's through that work that we've been in collaboration with Fresh Energy for quite a few years. So we brought this bill to the state capitol, and it seems like it's doing pretty good. So what your presentation was really good. I'm pretty much of a graphic person, so I didn't bring no graphics tonight. So I'm going to use some live graphics, if that's okay, to explain our bill. And so,
Steve,
all right. So this first row here, I'm going to call that rural Minnesota. The second row, I'm going to call it suburban Minnesota. The second, third, and fourth row, that's going to be urban Minnesota. So what this bill is about is, in rural Minnesota, they're going to be using chainsaws, gas-powered chainsaws. In suburbia, they're going to be using snow blowers and lawnmowers. And in urban, they're going to be using generators. We have one of the biggest get-togethers in the world, and what we use there is generators. You know what the great get-together is? The state fair, right? Now, the thing is, in all three of those places, graphic-wise, no location, the one common thing that is happening is clean air. But with the gas power, no, we're not getting the clean air. So we call this the small appliance electrification bill. But what you want to answer about so that they can actually see that? But what I call it the no-brainer clean air bill. I call it the no-brainer clean air bill because in both rural, suburban, and urban, we all need clean air. And every time, you refer to the distance, we say that when a person starting up their lawnmower is like a person going up to International Falls if they're doing it from St. Paul. But if a person is International Falls starting up their lawnmower and coming to that state fair, it's the same thing. So it's a common thing that no matter where we are, we all need clean air. And so hopefully graphically you can see that with this bill, what we're talking about is basically clean air. So there's people up here talking about it at a higher level, 100%, the just is 40, but what is happening in our everyday usage? And with this bill, we just want to make it possible for it to be an opportunity for everyone. So when I have a mandate, if it's in the rural area or if it's in the suburbia area or the urban area, just say we need to make sure that our lawns and our sidewalks are clean, that we provide an opportunity for everyone to be able to use a non-gas power and not put all those emissions in the air. But I'm gonna let Angelique explain more specifically what the bill is.
Yeah, thank you, Metric. So Metric came to Fresh Energy with this idea to basically put together a community fund to electrify outdoor equipment. So that includes mowers, blowers, trimmers, as well as the smaller generators that Metric mentioned. And the original goal was, in addition to making sure there's more clean air around, is this idea that as we're transitioning more and more parts of our lives to electric, it's not always easy for everyone to buy an electric vehicle. It's not always easy for everyone to buy an electric stovetop or get an electric heat pump. Renters, for instance, those living in multifamily housing properties. So was there an intro level or sort of entry point to get more people involved and excited about the electrification conversation? And with lawn care and outdoor equipment, it tends to be lower price points than, say, an electric vehicle, and something that people can really understand the benefits of electrification because it's so much quieter, so much cleaner, so much more efficient to use. So it's also, in addition to all the benefits Metric laid out, it's really a nice way to get more people involved and excited about this whole bigger clean energy transition that we're going under. And so this bill would really put together a chunk of money from the state. We're still, we're seeing how much money it is. We're getting a sense that it might be somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million, fingers crossed. But to put together funding that goes to the Pollution Control Agency to then disperse to both retailers to do point of sale rebates, as well as to kind of service oriented community level organizations such as CAP agencies that can then provide some of the grant funding specifically to residents. So that's sort of the main gist of it. The other thing the bill does that we're really excited about, it is also directs the Pollution Control Agency to actually decide a lot of the details of the grant program, the rebate program, with people outside the agency. So it's really asking the agency, can we reimagine how these grant and rebate programs are designed so that we actually make sure it is the most accessible and easy to use for folks who want to do this. And we specifically asked them to consider retailers, to consider communities most overburdened by air pollution, to consider folks like advocates who are interested in it, and really bring together all of them and try to figure out the small details of the program as well to make it as easy as possible to use. So it's really both those things that this bill is attempting to do. Right now, we've heard that there is a good chance it will be in the environmental omnibus bill, fingers crossed, which we'll find out tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. if that's actually the case. So very much in flux. Thank you for the applause. I appreciate that. And hopefully, in a few days we can confirm it did get into the environmental bill, and then hopefully we'll get a vote and pass in the next week here, which will be very exciting. Right now, it's $1 million. It could shift with negotiations over the coming days. So really anything would be really wonderful to get this off the ground. And we can always come back to the state legislature to ask for more money in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure you were not expecting to get an update from the state capitol, but here you go. Yeah, that's what it is. So that's a good thing to have this kind of program to help electrify and move this needle a little further in this way. So that's good. Other questions, other thoughts, whatever if you want to share something too. I know many of you have electrical lawn equipment and other things, so please.
So I got snowblowers, lawnmower, and the leaf blower as well, all battery operated. And one thing we want to consider is if you want to share batteries, probably want to try and get it's got the highest capacity, and then you can share that into all those other communities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, so the basic idea there was that when you look at this, make sure that you are buying the first equipment that when you're doing that, looking at if the other equipment in that same series can work for you too, and then you could share the batteries between them and get the one with the biggest capacity on the battery, so you can have it run the longest. Yes.
Don't most of these appliances, don't they come with a battery?
Good point. So question was, don't most of these appliances come with a battery? Some do, some don't. So you can sometimes just check when you look at the price, you're like, oh, that's so cheap. I buy that one. It's $100 cheaper in this seller than this one. Then look at it, like, just have a battery and charger if you need them. Because they sometimes just sell them as equipment only. Because if you already have 3 eco batteries, like I do, I don't need another battery with a next unit, but I can just buy the equipment itself. But if that's the first one that I'm buying, or I might have just one battery, I want a second battery with the purchase. So that's a good point. Make sure that you take a look at that and see if whatever is offered has the battery and charger with it, or if it doesn't, and see which one you want. Other thoughts? Yes.
I'm TJ Molasky, and I lead a local regional museum. When I started there 3 years ago, I inherited 27 acres.
Wow.
And we had, I think at that point in time, about 10 acres that we mowed. We're down to about 2.5 now. So I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to restore 2 acres of oak savanna and local prairie, the rest of it. But as a environmentalist and also, financial frugality runs in my blood as a nonprofit leader. I'm very excited about all of this. What's kind of going in my head right now is if I've got 2.5 acres of random lawns that need to be mowed because we have garden beds, would the mowing robot, how do you control where it mows? Because I can't have it going through garden beds.
Here we go.
All right, so there's a long, excellent.
Sharing of ideas here. You got it there.
And muted, so TJ.
Excellent, very good. So that's covered. I don't have to explain it again. Thank you for that. I'm very grateful. So robot mowers, I haven't looked at the latest technology, but I know that you can teach them the area. So they will know it when you do that. How it's done, I have to admit that I haven't looked into that recently. I'm sure they're getting wiser and wiser all the time. So it shouldn't be a problem in that way. I wouldn't be too concerned that you will find it in the inside your flower bed there. I've seen these used in Europe in some of the public areas too. And if you think about that, you don't want to have a mower there in a public area that would go in the sidewalk and just go wherever it wants. So I think they're pretty reliable in that way.
Do you know what the radius of the area is?
And I don't know about
Yeah.
that either. My best guess right now is that it's done electronically and just using a GPS or something like that because anyways, yeah. That unfortunately you have to do a little bit of homework for that one.
Right.
I don't have all the answers unfortunately today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very but good effort there. Excellent work and that's what we
Thanks.
want to see because I'm like 10 acres mowing. It doesn't make
No,
any
it
sense.
was, yeah,
So-
little old men for every day, all week long, just sitting on a. Yeah.
Exactly. Good. Other thoughts? Anything else? Anyone have questions or want to share? Yes.
Well, again, about batteries, you look at what you have up there and you've got, there's 3 different types there. And I personally have 3 different types with 3 different charging. Is there any movement toward standardizing these things?
I have not heard any, and it's as we know, it's very hard to get the manufacturer standardize anything. When we talk about the electric vehicles, people will usually ask like, well, couldn't we have the swappable batteries and just like, so we could all just share the same platforms, like try to make Ford and GM to do the same battery, never. So I think it's a little bit same with these, but it would be great. It would be great, but think about how long it took us to get even the common charging port for our cell phones. Now it's finally here. But when did we start to get the cell phones? That's 35 years ago. So that's how long it took in that area. So we'll see. But the batteries in these lawn equipment, of course, their longevities, we're talking about maybe 5 years or something like that. In good cases there, because again, their controls are more rudimentary. With electric cars, I drive now 8 years old electric car that has 130,000 miles on it, still has 90% of the battery capacity left. So I just sold, I had a 9 years old car that had 100,000 miles on it, and that has still 90% of the battery capacity left. So I'm not concerned. I actually, I moved from a car that had 100,000 miles to a car that has 130,000 miles. Still works just fine. I'm not concerned about that at all. Yeah.
And I have a quick thing to share. This was my battery. When I bought my mower 4 years ago, came with 2 batteries that were a little bit smaller than this. And it would only do about, each battery would do about 3/4 of my lawn. I got a standard lawn. And I ended up swapping out and using the same one over and over and over again for the most of it. And then the other one for just a little bit. And the one I used all the time wore out in 3 years. And so I bought this one. It was a little bit bigger. It cost me, I think, $70. And this one will do my whole lawn. And so I still have the second battery for that was with the purchase of the lawnmower. And I've got this one that'll do my whole lawn. So the longevity is pretty good. And as Jukka mentioned, if you take care of, I was always charging it all the way up and then running it down to nothing. So that probably had an effect on how long that lasted. So lesson learned on that.
Yeah. And of course, we want to recycle the batteries when they're done. If you have some new batteries that there's something wrong with the one cell or something like that, the batteries inside these are 18650s. Those are the cells that you can buy, for example, flashlights and other things for them, and you can buy an individual charger for it. So if you are handy, you can just open up that, harvest the batteries from inside there, and use them for all of your flashlights. They are really, really good for that use. And if anyone wants any, I have plenty of them in my garage, so just let me know. But they are really, really good because you have very high-powered flashlights that you use the 18650 cells for it. So they are, you can reuse them if they are not already all the way dead. That's what I've done.
All right, any more questions for Jukka? And let's just see if there was any in the chat since I looked. Oh, here, quick question from Mick. Have any cities in the metro area considered banning gasoline lawn equipment?
I don't think anyone here, but I think in California they have that now happening.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good things because there in California, the latest figures show that these lawn equipment are more causing the bad air quality there than the cars are very soon here. So it's very important that those are also replaced soon.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We appreciate your coming here and give Jukka a hand. Thank you. That's a great presentation. All right. And that concludes our thing. So everybody online, thanks a lot for logging on. We're gonna leave the meeting now.